I thought about that with my dad. I'm like, I know how to deal with guys like you when you sign treaties. Right? If that's how you're going to play, I know how to deal with you. And it's like, so the revolutionaries that they're like, so these social justice types, they change the meanings of words. So there's no dialogue possible.
So I used to feel that way.
Oh, whoa, I didn't expect that. Then what?
I know. I did. I used to feel that way. And I think that, so that a lot of the ideas of what we're talking about have obviously been adopted by large organizations and corporations and governments. So one of the things I did is I started reading basically everything I could from that perspective. And I started to understand why they do what they do. And in some way, you know, I like what you're saying about using dialogue over force. And part of when I tune into that, there's also a part of me that thinks, well, if we're going to choose dialogue over force, then we actually have to be willing to dialogue and actually engage with those ideas, right?
Yeah.
And to try to understand them on their own terms. And this is something that I actually see with doctors too on the intactivist issue. So they'll say, well, we don't like how there's some, you know, activists who we feel like are mean to doctors or saying mean things about them, or are a little too aggressive with their activism. And at the same time, they refuse to dialogue, right? When people have tried to, you know, actually I tried to buy an ad at one of the big doctors conventions and they would not take my money, right? And so they've done similar things too, where there used to be activists who would get a booth inside doctors conventions. And so as they've been marginalized, as they've been told, you're not allowed to speak, we're not going to listen to you, we won't engage in dialogue, people get louder because, well, dialogue is not an option, then we have to.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes, brother. That's how it goes.
But I think that there is the possibility for some dialogue on social justice issues. And so one of the things that I'm getting into in my book is that there actually is a reason that certain words get redefined. So a lot of modern social justice thinking is based in what's known as critical theory. And critical theory is a philosophical movement, if you will, created in the 1960s that was really concerned with language and how language creates systems of power. So, for example, if you want to talk about the issue of circumcision, the language that the dominant culture gives is circumcised and uncircumcised. And that language assumes circumcision as a norm.
Right.
And that people who are intact or have the body they were born with are in some way abnormal. But you wouldn't use that language on a woman's body. You wouldn't say that a normal woman is unmastectomied, right? You'd say she's normal, whole, natural. So intactivists call men who still have their foreskin intact. And so there's a way in which they changed the word because they actually couldn't have the conversation about the intact body unless they use the word intact. And so what I think activists on social justice issues are doing is something similar, where they feel like the existing words don't articulate what they're trying to say. And there's actually a whole school of thought in critical theory about what they call epistemic injustice, which is basically the idea that certain forms of truth are privileged over others. And there's something called hermeneutical injustice. And hermeneutical injustice, I know these are academic words that people came up with in academic journals and decided to use as many syllables as possible. But hermeneutical injustice is the idea that if you don't have the words to describe your experience, that's actually a form of injustice. So if you were a black person living in the Jim Crow South many years ago, and you didn't have the word racism to describe your experience, it'd be really hard to talk to people about that experience, right? So you actually need that word to talk about it. And so a lot of what they're doing, and the reason that their jargon is often so complex, I know, you facepalm when you hear a word like hermeneutical injustice.
No.
Like what in the world is this, But it's because they feel like the existing words don't capture their experience, and so you have to create something. And so when you start getting into, it is like a whole new language when you start reading it, but there is communication happening. But it's also like the language itself has this questioning of language in it, and assuming everything is creating, a system of power, and it gets very complex. It is the kind of thing that most people don't have time to like figure it all out.
I respect your ability to stomach it, okay? Which is like, to study it at all. I'm like, I've read about the Marxists, and it really just turns my stomach. And I'm like, okay, I just do that one to you. And I'm like, it's all good. The issue I have though is like, it's a power grab. Okay.
It is, but the whole philosophy is about power dynamics and exploring those.
I understand. It's very simple and straightforward. It's like this: we want more power, and by any means. And I'll make the words up if I need to, and that's okay. I respect that in its boldness, which is like this. The problem that I have is like that makes Mao correct. Power springs from the barrel of a gun, and that's the bottom line.
Oh, but that's actually not what they would say. And by the way, I'm speaking for them. My personal philosophy is slightly different.
Anything to you, I'm not just so.
All right, thank you. I do think there are some good ideas in there, but so their philosophy is actually that power comes from language, and that the language you use actually contains systems of power in it.
Okay, this goes to this Babylonian philosophy that I discovered after I started studying the biblical Hebrew, which was unexpected, right? So Babylon is controlled by two groups of magic users, okay? There's magi who do good things to help good people get good things and prevent bad things from happening to good people. And those are the magi or the wise men of the East in the Nativity story, okay? There's also sorcerers. And sorcerers have an entirely different job. And their job is to summon demons and control them through their superior knowledge of evil. And the purpose is, a demon in this construct is an ideological creation for the purpose of inspiring the emotionality of the masses, who are then enthralled and go in the direction you want them to go. And I'm like, that's what these people are doing.
So is there a good version of magic in this system? Or is it all?
The magi are the good version of magic.
And what makes them good?
They try to prevent bad things from happening to good people, and they help good things happen to good people.
See, they would say that they're the good ones. They're trying to stop, racism and homophobia. And
of course, they would say that. They're powerful, right? Their lies are to be understood as what they are, right? It's like this. It's like, I'm a racist, but I redefine racism so that you're the racist all the time and can never be a not racist. There's no redemption possible. And I will change the rules anytime I see fit to cause your emotionality to be adjusted appropriately to cause you to be demoralized and me to win. How hard was this? And it's like, that's how I see this. And it's like, whoa, I'm like probably on the third rail on this one. I'd like apologize.
You know what it sounds like is bothering you? And this is something I talk about in my book, is that they're playing a zero-sum game. So ideally, you want to look for what's called win-win scenarios. So like us doing this podcast is a win-win because I'm getting to talk to your audience and you're getting content for your podcast, and we're learning by talking to each other. So it's not like one of us wins and one of us loses.
That's right.
Whereas if you were playing something like chess or doing a boxing match or something, there'd be a winner and a loser. But those, of course, are games that you enter into consensually. So even if you're doing something like that, there might still be a hidden win-win if that you're both playing a game and you're enjoying that and learning something or having an athletic competition. But like a true win-lose game would be something like a mugging, where someone gets something from that and the other loses, and it's being forced on them. And so it sounds like what's bothering you is that the way the political conflict is set up, there's one person who gets to be right and one person who gets to be wrong, and one who wins and one who loses. And there's no room for you to say, well, is there a way we could both win and you could get your needs addressed and I could remain safe and get the things that I want?